Hello and welcome to the Jason Eldridge Photo Show. In this video, I'm going to take you through my photo finishing process for one of my favorite images that I captured in the Grand Teton National Park last May. On my final day in the Grand Teton National Park last May, I was driving around looking for a bear because, you know, that's what you do sometimes. And I looked out the side of the window and I saw a single tree amongst sagebrush, and it was all wet and the sun was hitting it and mist was rising up and it was absolutely beautiful. So I stopped, I got out, I set everything up, and I managed to get one or two shots before all of that mist went away and it just became too bright. So I thought maybe you would want to see how I finish my images. So we're going to head over into Lightroom and I'll show you what I did with this one. Here we are in Lightroom looking at the raw, unfinished photograph. And I want to talk a bit about my camera settings at the time of capture and why I chose what I did and what we're going to do to deal with some of the negative parts of the choice that I made. There's always a trade-off, so we'll get into that in just a second. So here I am at 1/1000th of a second at f4.8 ISO 64. I'm at 155 millimeters on the Nikon 100-400. I'm across the road making this photograph, and again, it only lasted just a few seconds and it was gone. So I chose 4.8 because I wanted this tree to be absolutely the main subject and I wanted that background blurred out. A lot of times in these situations, I would actually focus stack so that all the way up front, all the way to the back would be nice and sharp. But I didn't want everything nice and sharp. I wanted this tree and this depth of field line right here. That's what I wanted sharp. I wasn't worried about anything else. So I managed to grab this photo, and you'll notice that it's really dark. It's really dark because I was worried about all of the little bits of light that you see right here from the drops on this tree being hit by the sun. Yes, they're still going to be blown out, but not as much as they would have been if I had exposed a little bit brighter. You'll see that there's plenty of leeway that I have in this raw file to do what I want to with it, even though you'll notice in the histogram, yeah, there's a lot to the left, and that's okay. So let's get into finishing this photograph. First thing I'm going to do is actually crop it, and it'll help with this blurry sagebrush here in the front. So we're going to crop, and I'm just going to go in about like that right there. And yes, it's rule of thirds-ish, not completely, but rule of thirds-ish. And rules are for fools, but sometimes it works just fine. So it works in this instance, we're going to use it. All right, now we've eliminated a lot of this distraction up here, and we're going to do a little bit more about that here soon. But let's go through the basics. We're going to bring that exposure up first, and you can really begin to see what is awesome about this scene as all of that mist comes into view. We're also going to mess a little bit with the temperature. Right now it's kind of cool, which I don't mind, but let's see what happens if we add just a little bit of warmth, just a tiny bit. And look at that. That's already a huge difference. Highlights, I'm not going to worry too much about because some of what the highlight effects, I actually want left alone. Right there, we're going to go 0. Actually, you know what? Let's raise it up just a little bit, just a tiny bit. We got to be careful because when we mess with the whites, it's also going to affect those areas. Shadows, I'm not going to touch because shadows are going to affect that background, and we don't like that background because, well, that's why I wanted it blurred out. This tree is the main subject, and I want it to pop off the screen there. So let me show you what happens if I were to add shadows. See, it just distracts for the image. It just distracts the image. So we're going to remove those shadows. Whites, you can see what that's going to do, and that's great. But you can also hold down the Alt key, and that way you know you're not doing too much. If it starts getting in white like that, you're in real trouble and you're going to burn all of that out. So you just got to be careful. And then you can adjust it to your site there if you want. I like that quite a bit. Blacks, I like my blacks black. So I find where it begins to creep in and I usually push it just a little bit more. So in just a few seconds, we went from here to here. That's pretty amazing. Texture, we're not going to mess with. Clarity, we're just going to up the clarity a little bit. I like the crisp nature of this photo, so we're going to accentuate that just a little bit. Now, dehaze, you have to use it very sparingly. It is extremely powerful as far as what it does to the image. So we're actually going to go a little bit negative haze. That kind of accentuates the mist a little bit. Vibrance, we're just going to go up to maybe, I don't know, somewhere around in there. Bring out some of those colors. And then we're going to go saturation very little. So again, before and after with just a few changes. Now I like to darken the edges of my photos, and I'm going to do that with a radial tool. So you click the little masking feature and you have a radial gradient, and we're going to grab it. We're just going to make it huge first. Make it huge. We're going to center it over the main subject right there, and we're going to invert. Now you can see the areas that it's going to darken. It's not going to darken at all the tree or the subject there, but it's going to darken these other edges. And we're just going to bring those down just a little bit. Not a lot. If you do it too much, it becomes stupid. See? Stupid. So we're just going to bring it down just enough right there. Another thing we can look at is we want to darken this front just a little bit more because we want that tree to be our main focus. So we're going to hit the plus. We're going to grab a linear gradient and we're going to drag it up from the bottom, about right there. And now we're just going to darken that a little bit more. See, now your eyes just go to the tree and that line of mist right there. So while we're here, you can hit the plus again. We're going to say select subject, and it's going to do a really good job of selecting the subject. There it is. It does a really good job. Now we're going to bring that exposure up just a little bit on the tree. Just a little. Bring out some more on that tree. And maybe even a little bit on the whites of it. A little bit on the shadows of just that tree right there. And the blacks, let's just make it a little bit more contrast. How about that? Now we're seeing the sun's effect on the little needles of the tree. Again, here's where we started. Here's where we are. What else am I going to do to this image? We're going to sharpen it, but we're going to selectively sharpen. So here's your sharpening tool. You could go all the way here and make it all crispy if you want, but I'm not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to mask out the things we don't want sharpened. Again, hold down that Alt key, grab the masking, and whatever is white is what it's going to sharpen. So we want to just sharpen the edges. You can see right there, it's going to sharpen the tree and the edges of that sagebrush. And that's all we're going to sharpen. We're going to be liberal on it, go all the way up to 70. And now it doesn't make all of this crispy, it only makes the edges crispy. And that's kind of what we're going for here. Is there anything else we're going to do? We could do a little bit here if we want to darken those edges using the post-crop vignette, but I had preferred to do it the way we did it, which was the radial gradient here. And looking at this image, we're going to go back up and we're going to check that temperature a little bit more. Do we like it warm or cool? See, there's where we started. I think I like it just a little bit warm, not much. Now, if I were going to take this one step further, I would eliminate some of those little minor distractions that I'm seeing in the photograph. And I'd go to the healing brush and I would just, like this little bright spot right here, just eliminate that bright spot. Anything like that that you see, just get rid of those. They're just minor distractions. It's not really going to make a huge difference, but if you wanted to take it that little step further, that's one way that you could do it. And here we have the final image. Here's the before and the after. This only took about 8 or 9 minutes, and that was me instructing you. If I were doing this on my own, it would be really fast. It's something that I could do in probably less than 5 minutes. And that's how I generally like to edit. If I'm going to be doing focus stacking or panoramics or HDR or anything like that, sometimes it does take longer. But for the most part, I prefer that my photo finishing to be rather simple and rather fast. I don't do a whole lot of heavy lifting in Photoshop. I have done it before, but I prefer this method of photo finishing. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to see more content like this, let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell, and as always, grab your camera, get off the couch, escape, explore, and create.